The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Ryan Harris. Many of you on the call today will know me as the account manager at NoBlue. I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your day to be on the second of our new series of webinars featuring built for NetSuite products. I'm joined today by Deepak Goyal, Director of Alliances and Business Development, and Jasmine Desai, Solution Consultant Manager at Tipalti, who will provide you with an overview and demonstration of the product. If anyone has any questions during the webinar, please use the chat option provided. We'll answer all your questions in the Q&A later in the session. So I'll now hand you over to Deepak and Jasmine, who will take you through their presentation.
Thank you very much indeed, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. As Ryan said, my name is Deepak Goyal. I'm the Director of Alliances at Tipalti, which is a rocket ship business, fintech octagon that's now helping local businesses in the UK automate their AP. Jasmine, if you could please click over to the next slide. Thank you. Just to give you a quick background on who Tipalti are, we are a global payable solution. There's over 2,000 customers ranging from small, medium and large. You'll notice some of the brands on the right-hand side are pretty international brands. They weren't when they first started working with us. They started out as fairly small and some medium-sized businesses. So one of the points I want to bring out in this slide is that when customers start working with us, they do continue to work with Tipalti for the long term. We transact in the region of £25 billion worth of transactions on behalf of our clients each year. We pay out to 6 million payees globally. 98% of our customers are satisfied with our service and our product, and we additionally have a 99% customer retention. Just feeding back to that same point I was making earlier. We got a funding round in December 2021, which has propelled our growth into other markets globally, including Europe in 2022 and further markets such as Australia in 2023. We do target fast-growing mid-sized businesses predominantly, but what we're finding is that any business that's got a problem with accounts payable and wants to automate it is exploring Tipalti as a market-leading solution. Additional to this, we've won some awards that position us quite well globally, and they are the Deloitte 500 and the Inc 5000. We've won those 3 years in a row. So next slide, please, Jasmine. Okay, so let's talk about NoBlue, NetSuite, and Tipalti and why this partnership exists. AP is a high priority automation agenda for the finance office. It's one of the most time-consuming processes within AP, and something that a lot of businesses with high requirements around AP are looking to automate so they can gain efficiency, they can scale, and they can bring in efficiency into their business. And how does Tipalti support this? And why isn't NoBlue partnering with Tipalti in order to do this? Well, we are a direct plug-and-play integration into NetSuite. In fact, we won NetSuite Partner of the Year in 2019, the last time that award was available, and we are built for NetSuite certified for all products that we have. Tipalti shares something like 550 customers globally with NetSuite. Now, in the UK, we landed up here in the UK and opened up our office in September of 2021. So we've already got customers that are similar customers of NetSuite here in the UK as well. Obviously, the 550 mainly comprised currently of USA-based businesses. Throughout the period, and even before we landed up here, NoBlue was partnered with NetSuite because we are a solution that delivers value against the requirement to automate AP. And that's through the coverage that we have of payments into different countries and currencies, and also the integrations that we built. Most notably here, we're talking about the NetSuite integration. We're also a Platinum Suite World sponsor at 2019 and 2021. So what makes Tipalti able and effective at doing its job here? Well, we're a UK regulated business. We're regulated by the UK FCA to manage payments, and we'll go through that and what it means for the solution of the customers later. We've also got localized provision for this market here. So we have actually localized everything that we do from the US business, which Tipalti traditionally was, to the UK. And as I mentioned, that started happening in September. We now have over 50 people employed in our UK office. across a variety of different functional teams, including alliances, sales, marketing, integrations, implementations, development teams, and of course, our solutions consultants team. And this leads me nicely on to introduce to you Jasmine Desai, who's going to take you through one of the products. In fact, a coverage of several of the products that we cover. Jasmine, over to you.
Thank you, Deepak. Nice to meet you all. So as Deepak and Ryan said, my name is Jasmine Desai. I am the SC manager at Tipalti, working across all of Tipalti's offerings. But before that, I worked at NetSuite for 6 years as a solution consultant. So I may have met you, or met a few of you on your deal potentially. But before that, I worked within many finance roles in industry, ranging from an AP clerk all the way to a financial controller, where I qualified as a senior chartered accountant and achieved my Prince 2 certification. So as Deepak said, I'll be taking you through the system capabilities today. But just a bit of background. So during that time in finance, I witnessed that about 80% of the manual effort within the finance team sat within the AP function, as many of you probably already know. And within that function, it is the most error prone. It's the area where we find the most amount of attrition. It happens there because login paper, isn't really finance. The companies that I work for, myself, dealt with a volume by adding staff members. So this may be something that you guys have come across. Each staff member costs on average 32.5K potentially. So for a year, I think one of our clients said they spent 360K a year just on the staffing that they had to manage their AP function, which is a significant amount. Other companies use their management accountant to spend like 40% of their time working on AP, and that was actually me, even at one stage within my finance journey with ERP support. So as much as ERPs are helping automate, it may not be fully automating the actual situation, your AP situation. And now we're also seeing shortages in the actual AP function, because a lot of AP staff, when they're coming out of university, they don't really want to do that role anymore. They're coming out hungry, and there's only so much time they'll spend posting invoices, preparing payment runs, dealing with suppliers, and that creates an environment where you get a lot of incorrect payment details being captured, delayed payments, missed invoices, really damaging those supplier relationships that we're trying to hold dear. A lot of unhappy people. And then, of course, you've all probably witnessed the added effect of COVID. With more people working remotely, it's not secure to run this function on paper anymore. Audits get harder, payments get harder, the security of making payments get harder. And so what we've seen recently, and this is exactly why we're here right now, is that truly automating an AP function becomes a massive priority to organizations. And this is where we can partner with NetSuite's native functionality to help achieve that. So what I'm going to do in terms of this session is focus on the AP functionality first, and then we can talk about other offerings that we provide for what we like to call global partner payments. So let's look at the slide then. So this is the Tipalti ecosystem, and this is exactly where we can enhance the functionality of the NetSuite offering. So it's working side by side. It's with the NetSuite functionality. Like I said, we believe that all ERPs provide automation, but there's so much more that can be achieved, and this is exactly what what I'll be going through today. So in terms of Tipalti is a true multi-entity system like NetSuite. We're able to manage your AP operations across the globe on one single platform. So again, like NetSuite, managing your various different currencies, entities, payment options as well, which might differ. Let's see how this session goes. The ability, so what you also have is the ability to set controls at a user level or an entity level. Again, very similar to what you can do at NetSuite. Highlighting these just so you know that we're not losing any functionality here. And the platform is cloud-based as well. So it's going to allow you to access all of this data anytime, wherever you are in the world, as long as you have an internet connection. It's the only tool globally where you're able to manage the full AP cycle. That's from start supplier onboarding all the way to payments on one single platform. And I think that's the key thing here. So looking at the slide, if we start at supplier management and actually talk about tax and supplier management in the same section, what we're trying to do is collect information, but actually collect information by putting the responsibility of collecting that information in the hands of the supplier. So what we're trying to do is essentially ensure that because the supplier is populating that information, there is a reduced risk of us then creating false payments or incorrect payments at the end of the cycle. There's also sanction screenings and bank code validation using 26,000 rules embedded within the system to make sure that even when the supplier is putting in their details, we're also capturing the right details, but also we're not paying any bad suppliers. So that's happening within the platform. What we're then also able to do is capture tax details required for each subsidiary, so each entity specifically. So if you're in the US, that could be the W8, W9 information. In the UK, that's your tax ID. We're also including tax ID validation as we're actually processing those information, processing the information as well. So when you're putting in AP invoices currently, I know myself, I was guilty at this. I never really checked the tax ID on the invoice matched what we had collected initially. But this is happening automatically to make sure that we're staying compliant. And then the actual supplier has access to this hub as well. So they and you have one view of the actual truth. Massive for any of your AP collects or your AP teams that are actually constantly picking up the phone and answering emails about when are we getting paid, you know, have you received this invoice? That chasing time becomes reduced, which reduces the stress just for that function, for that team entirely. And then, of course, reconciliation of statements, monthly statements that come in, but I'll show you that as part of the actual demonstration. The next stage is actually procurement. So we're not going to look into this in as much detail. And I know NetSuite has, and I like to call it purchasing. So I know that NetSuite has a PO management solution, and we work really well with the native PO management solution as well. But some people want to enhance that, because my understanding of the feedback that we get is that the NetSuite users believe that the NetSuite is great for finance, but some of the PO creators may not find the functionality as user-friendly. Also, if you're receipting invoices and the user's receipting invoices, the actual finance team needs to do that. You know, the actual users don't have the capability of doing that. So this is where, again, we're enhancing the functionality and capability of NetSuite, utilizing a different solution, and that solution is called Approve. Also, and I'm just going to flip to the screen just to show you, what that looks like here. So this is kind of like just a screenshot of the Approve solution. In NetSuite, currently, we can't do budget validation, you know, against the POs that come in. This is exactly what you'll be able to do with the actual Approve offering as well. As the PO is raised, you're able to see exactly how much of your budget's been used, what's pending, sorry, so what's been used in terms of invoicing, what's pending in terms of POs raised, what this purchase is going to do to the actual budget, and then what we have remaining as well, on the same view as where you're approving these POs, which is a great view for any budget holder. So the next stage is invoice management. So invoices are generally gathered from an email address or uploads from a Supplier Hub. We have 3 levels of matching. So unlike just an OCR tool, we also have the added functionality of managed services to manage more dynamic allocations that OCR generally can't detect. And then on top of that, we're learning. We're learning through something that we call machine learning, or our solution is called Pi, that learns the way in which we're coding these invoices. So again, you know, as we're actually pushing these invoices through the system, we're reducing that manual effort for actually having to code these invoices. Then PO matching, which we won't go through today, but ultimately we are able to gather information from NetSuite and then match the information within Tipalti. That's 2-way and 3-way matching. And then, of course, the approvals associated with the actual invoice as well, which we'll have a look at. And then any approved or matched invoices will be sent directly to NetSuite within our integration. The next stage is actually the, sorry, there we go. Don't know why that's happening. Sorry, the next stage is actually the global remittance. So this is where I've seen the most benefit. So this is the area over here. The manual effort creating payment files per country, per payment type, per subsidiary, per bank. You know, we're able to actually manage those and create those payment files per uniformly. So all within one payment batch, rather than currently right now, my understanding is for each entity, you're creating one payment file. For each payment type, you're creating one payment file. This then, again, reducing the manual work. It's if the one person's approving all payment types or all payment files across all the countries or per entity, we're able to adjust our solution to ensure that you're able to pay your suppliers through the one payment method the one payment batch, rather than having to create multiples and export that out of the system and then import that into a bank, which is generally what a lot of NetSuite users are doing right now. And then finally, it's the actual the reconciliation and reporting phase. So if I move on to the actual reconciliation side, as Deepak said, we have the tightest integration with NetSuite. So we're able to work with NetSuite in two ways. When it's non-PO related, you can see that we have a bi-directional sync to bring vendor information from Tipalti into NetSuite. Tipalti will become your master record, but ultimately all information will then automatically be synced back to NetSuite, so you have one record of the truth. Vendor bills, we acquire the vendor bills within Tipalti, but then we push those vendor bills after approval into NetSuite to ensure that all of your accounts are up to date. And then when payments made within Tipalti, as soon as those payments are made, they close the invoices, the supplier invoices within NetSuite. When POs are involved, the only difference is that we acquired the PO information and the receipt information from NetSuite, and we do the matching within Tipalti across your against the actual invoices that are come in. So that's the two-way and three-way match. The screens in terms of the way that we match the actual two-way and three-way POs, it's just on one screen, rather than having to drill down into multiple different screens to enable you to actually understand exactly what's been received, or if a PO actually has been fully utilized within the actual system. Then the rest of the actual flow is exactly the same. Okay, so that's just a bit of an overview. So what we'll do is actually jump into the system and see how this actually works in practice. So to access Tipalti, you have a login. Like I said, you can access the details anywhere around the world as long as you have a Wi-Fi or internet connection. We've got single sign-on, as you can see, or you can log in directly, which I'll do. And then you'll be taken to a Tipalti dashboard. While that's logging in, there we go. You'll see that at the top, we'll be able to see some ribbons up here, where you'll have this administration area is exactly where you'll start putting in the details around what users can do, what entities can see, which information, and you can drill down to quite a fundamental layer. Somebody that's an approver can't be a submitter of an invoice. Someone that's making a payment run can't actually, push the cash out of the system. It has to go through multiple approvals before the actual the payment file is actually pushed out. Before the actual payment is actually made out of the actual funding accounts held within Tipalti. But again, we'll look at that as we go through the flow. So as we said, the first bit of the supplier journey is actually to onboard the supplier. So this is our view, so us as the AP team view of the actual system. As we're introducing a new supplier into our team, all we need to do is click on Add Payee and put in the information that we know. That's an email address, a name, a last name, and the entity that will be actually providing a service for. You can actually select an actual language. So if you are a global organization and you're recruiting a supplier that is speaking a different language, you can actually set their hub, so what they're seeing, to be in their language. So again, truly being able to localize our product for the actual global market. And then you just click on invite the actual supplier to the portal. What they'll be able to see is an email being sent to them. Now, of course, this is from our team at Eversky, but for yourselves, this will be catered for your organization with your logo, with the actual communication you want to make to the actual supplier. But the most important thing here is that there's a tokenized link here. So tokenized meaning if we forward this information to anybody else within the organization, apart from who we're actually dealing with, the link will fail because, of course, we're dealing with payments out of the system. We have to be really secure in terms of who's putting their sort code and account details in. information. Also, it's timed, so after a certain amount of time, if they don't put the details in, then we'll also make sure that they have to resubmit their information. By logging into the actual within that portal, within that email, they'll have access to what we like to call the supply portal. So all they'll need to do is set up their login, and this is what they'll see. So this is what our supplier view of the solution is. So there's multiple different ribbons here. Sorry, I think I had a bit of internet issues. I hope I'm not too sure where I cut off, but ultimately what we can see here is the area in which we add the information for the actual supplier, or the supplier will be onboarding themselves. Here you can see that we have multiple different areas in which we collect information, the payment method, the tax forms, and then of course that we're fully onboarded. In terms of collecting information, you can see that we will collect details around their email address, their phone number, their details, and then their country. Now, the country that they reside in will ultimately allow them to have a choice in terms of how we would like to pay that supplier, and that's payment methods and what currency that we'd like to pay those suppliers as well. So I click on edit, and I actually change this to, let's say, the the States to start with. And I pick the state. First of all, what you'll be able to see is that I will be given a pop-up to say, of course, Downing Street is not in the US, but if I confirm and continue anyway, I'll be given a choice as a US supplier in terms of how I want to actually transact with Eversky, or our organization. I'm given the choice of a wire transfer or a prepaid debit. And what you can see here in terms of the information that I'm collecting is going to be very different to if I'm collecting BACS details. I've got access to SWIFT and things like that. So what we're able to do is then number one, control the way in terms of we're paying our different suppliers, but also educate ourselves internally. I don't know about yourselves, but I know when I was paying somebody that was, it resides in a different country or with a different payment type, it was very difficult at some points to understand exactly what information that I needed to be able to ensure that I made the correct payment out to the actual supplier at the end. So if I go back and now select a UK supplier, or suggest that that I'm in the UK, what you'll then be able to see is that I'm giving a different choice. So on a country by country level, I'm able to now suggest exactly how we want to interact or how we want to pay those particular suppliers. So now I'm given the choice of SEPA, local bank transfer, which is our BACS. I can set my payment currency. I want to be paid in GBP, or actually I want to be paid in euro. If euro is something that they want to transact in and they're choosing to be paid in that currency, then what we are also able to do is say, actually, we don't want to pay the fees, the FX fees, in terms of converting the currencies. So if you want to be paid in euros, then you will take the actual hit in terms of currency. Whereas if they took it in GBP, then there won't be any hit in currency. So, again, just being able to be really flexible in the way that you transact with your suppliers. But then as we start putting in details, so let's say if we start putting in a sort code and it's not the right amount of digits, or we're not actually capturing the right data for payment, then we're going to be notified of that as a supplier. It's pushing the supplier to ensure that they're putting in the right payment details so we can actually make the actual payments for them. You're also given the choice to actually hold the payment. So other situations or scenarios that we have is that potentially they don't have the information in terms of payment details yet, but we still want to transact. We still want to raise a PO against them. We're not going to hold hold anybody to stop actually doing that. They can go in and actually put in their details a bit later, but they'll be notified on their end that they won't be able to make a payment, or they won't be able to receive a payment until they upload their payment details. The next area that we collect is the actual tax information. So here you can see that because we are a UK supplier, we're going to be telling them to actually to put in their VAT number. So we're going to collect that detail up front. Remember, this is the information that we validated against all of the invoices that come in afterwards. And if they are not VAT registered, and they, you know, and a lot of suppliers, maybe smaller suppliers, or you know, if you're dealing with bloggers, content creators, they're actually dealing with their own VAT details. So they'll then have to just basically agree that they're going to be managing that themselves. Okay, so once they're set up as suppliers, then that's not the end of it. So like I said, it's an interactive hub. What they can then see is actually their details. So in terms of what they're able to see is payment history. So this allows them to understand what payments have been made, when they're being made, and if anything's being deferred, and exactly the reasons why. So, you know, again, reducing that effort spent with AP to be able to kind of like set suppliers up for their own ability to kind of take responsibility for the reasons why they're not being paid. So, you know, here we can see we're ready to pay, but we've been set on hold payments. If we drill into this detail, as a supplier, I can see that the tax forms weren't provided or the VAT number wasn't entered. And this is until they do that, we're not able to then actually make a payment. Once they update those details, we'll be notified within finance, and then we can make that payment directly. What they're also able to do is understand what's been submitted in terms of invoices. This is huge. So anybody that does statement reconciliations within the actual company, instead of having to do that internally, what a supplier can now do is actually check that we've received all of the invoices that they've been submitted. They can see the status of those invoices, whether they're paid or in progress. And if they're actually missing anything, you can upload the invoice directly from the portal, or we can have a dedicated email address where we're going to add all of that, add all of the invoices related to all suppliers. Also see that if we're dealing with a multi-entity supplier, we're able to capture all the details for all of those supplier invoices, regardless of the entity that they're transacting with within that one portal. Okay, so that's the actual supplier portal, and that's how we onboard. So after we've onboarded the actual supplier, now we've got the supplier can now submit invoices to us. So like I said, there's two different ways in which they can submit invoices. One is via the portal, as we've just seen, or the other way is actually via the actual email address. So a dedicated email address where we then at Tipalti will be able to extract the information from the details embedded in that invoice and bring it into the system. In terms of the life cycle of an invoice, it can go through multiple different stages, as you can see, either pending review, pending my approval if I'm a part of the approval cycle, pending AP action, which means that there's one of the other approvers have said that maybe the code's wrong, the department's wrong, and we have to adjust that before that we can submit that for payment, or pending payment, and that's exactly where we want all the invoices to get to. So this is our list of invoices, and you can see our machine learning not only identifies how we code an invoice, it's also going to let us know when there's a potential duplicate invoice. So if we look into one of these invoices, you can see here highlighted that it could be a potential duplicate. We'll see how Tipalti extracts the information off of the actual invoices. So as the screen loads, you'll see on the left-hand side, we'll be able to see the scanned invoices. So that's the invoices that have come in into our emails, and we'll be able to extract that detail and publish it on the Tipalti platform. And on the right-hand side, we'll be able to see all the data that's been extracted from the invoices from different methods in terms of extraction. So we've got the OCR, which will extract the data like header level data, like the payee name, the payee entity, the invoice number, the invoice date, the due date, and then you've got your managed services, which will be able to populate a little bit more detail up front. Let me just see why that's not loading. Okay, let me just continue. So so you got your managed services, which will be able to extract a little bit more data from the but more so, less so like grab and capture, more so data that's a little bit more variable, like the location and you know, details around maybe even approvals, like just to understand exactly, you know, based on. I just want to check, are you able to see my screen? Because it looks like I've got a couple of issues here. Deepak, can you just confirm?
Jasmine, yes, you can see your screen. I can see the invoice now as well. I think your connection is a bit patchy.
Fantastic. Okay, sorry about that. Since the storm, the internet's been really bugged around my area. Yeah, so, okay, great that you can see the actual information now. Okay, so like I said, the OCR, the managed service that starts populating details initially, and then what will happen is that the machine learning will start learning in terms of the way that we're coding invoices. So to then be able to to populate the information, as you can see here, on either the header level or the line level, to reduce the information that the AP has to actually push into this actual invoice as well. So then the AP function, instead of having to be a doing function, becomes more of a reviewing function. Of course, we suggest the review, obviously, because, you know, sometimes we have suppliers that work across multiple different departments, multiple different projects, and so we can assure that, you know, we are just doing that last final check with an AP, but that's all it is. It's reducing a significant amount of time of manual entry, even when you're converting POs to invoices within NetSuite as well. So the other thing here that we spoke about is the actual approval here. So you can see here that we've got two different ways in which we are able to approve invoices. One is what we like to call a dynamic approval. So if you are maybe a smaller organization or growing organization where you want to be able to add approval links as and when an invoice is being raised, i.e., okay, well, normally based on this particular invoice, it would go to a department manager, a particular person, and then you can add another approver. Okay, well, this needs to go to a controller as well. So you can start creating approval links on the fly, or you're able to actually create more strict approvals as well, i.e., all invoices have to go to a department manager first. If it's over a certain amount, it has to go to a particular person within finance. And if it's really high, then it has to go to an FC or an FD, for example. So it's totally up to you in terms of how you create those approvals. But Tipalti gives you the flexibility to choose which way in which you create those approval links. The other thing that you're able to do here, which is, you know, something that's different to what you're currently being able to do within NetSuite, is people outside the system. So it might be that you have a one-off invoice, or it might be a non-Tipalti user or a non-NetSuite user that needs to approve an invoice. This shouldn't stop you from actually having that input within an invoice. So you can actually now get approvers to look at invoices that are outside the system. All you need is a name and an email address, maybe even put in an approval limit, and you can add them to the approval chain. And what will happen is they'll be sent an email that basically shows them the actual invoice details. So here I can see the supply detail, I can see the line level detail, the department, location, class level detail, the amount. And I can also see the other invoices that have been submitted by that supplier, so they have full understanding exactly how we're transacting with that particular supplier. I can even see the status on stages of that invoice as well. So if I know that we've been double invoiced, then I can quickly identify that as somebody that's not a Tipalti user or not a NetSuite user. I can also see the list of approvers and the stages that this particular invoices is in. I have access to the actual invoice as well, so the PDF is down here. And then I've got a choice. I can approve the bill, I can update the account. Now, I don't know how comfortable you are with people externally from finance being able to update coding, but you don't have to allow them that access. But you might give them access to update department. Maybe they hold two budgets, and you want to make sure that the actual invoice is coded to the right budget. So they can actually do that rather than it having to go back to AP to do that. Or they can send it back to AP and ask them to actually make those adjustments. depends how much control you want over the actual coding, or they can go back to the supplier and actually dispute this bill. So where in a current cycle, you would have to pick up the phone, or AP would have to maybe discuss issues with an invoice that they might not know too much about. Now the budget holder can do that just on the fly off the back of this email. That the actual supplier gets an email, they update the invoice, they resubmit it, and then AP gets a notification that that's been done. So again, really strengthening those communication chains between our supplier partners and the AP team, and reducing the amount of communication that our AP team needs to have with suppliers on calls, on emails. Okay, so that brings us to the final stage. We've got now all of our invoices that have gone through approval, maybe adjustments through AP action, and once they've done that, they're sitting here. They're sitting here in pending payment. They're sitting. Okay. So this is going to be a list of all of the invoices that we have now completely happy to be paid. They're completely approved, and now we're just going to create an actual payment batch off the back of this. So I have two choices here. I can select all, or I can actually cherry pick. Now, what you'll be able to see is that, like I said, that because we have that tight integration with NetSuite, familiar dimensions are also embedded within the actual filters as well. We can filter by location, project, department, entity, but many, many, many more as well. So once you've created a filter and know exactly who you want to pay, you can then actually select all of the invoices that you want to pay, and then you have two options. Now, let's say you're creating a payment run for operational invoices, lighting, heating, gas, things that have to go out at a certain time. Instead of having to create payment runs on the fly, you can actually have those invoices go direct to processors and actually create a payment run that will pay those invoices as and when they're due. So on the payment cycle, or on the creditor's terms, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So you create the batch, and as and when they're due, Tipalti will automatically pay those invoices for you. The other option that you have is maybe you're paying, a load of project invoices, or suppliers that are due on a certain day that aren't, that are cost of sales rather than actually operational invoices. You can have a select date here. So you can say that all of these invoices that we've just selected need to be paid at the end of the month. And then you click on prepare payments. That will then create a payment batch for you. So in terms of the actual payment batch, I'm really sorry about this. So it's just, I think I'm just keep on logging out of the internet, but I'm hoping it's all making sense here. So in terms of the payment batch, now this is a key area of the actual system, and a massive differentiator from what you're probably doing now. Within NetSuite, you're not able to create approvals in terms of payment batches. So the last time you approve an invoice within NetSuite is actually at the bill phase. Once the actual invoice is approved via a bill, then you select payments and you create a payment batch, and then you export that and upload that into a bank. Here within Tipalti, you can actually have another layer of approval here. So before money goes out of the system, you're able to have a couple of layers of approval. So whether that's a financial controller, an FD, a CFO, it's completely dependent on yourself. So they can go in and approve the batch here, or if they log in and want to understand the detail, they can actually see exactly what we're paying as well. So a couple of things to identify here. One, we're paying invoices across multiple different currencies. Two, we're created one payment batch across multiple different payment methods as well. So this in the current situation would be a payment batch per separate, for all your separate payments, a payment batch per all of your BACS information, a payment batch per wire. These are all of your payment methods being managed within one payment file. Another will be, a different payment batch per entity. Again, this is multi-entity as well. So all of your entities can be paid on one payment batch, or you're able to separate them as well if they go through a different flow for a different CFO, if you've got a decentralized finance function. While you're creating, looking at these payments, if any point in time you want to cancel one of these, you don't actually want to pay the supplier. Instead of having to recreate those payment format files, you can just cancel the payment over here but still continue on paying all of those different invoices that have been created in the payment batch. That cancel payment will just go back into invoices waiting for payment. And that's it. When you're happy with that, you just click on approve, and then the actual invoices are ready to be paid. So in terms of payment, you're able to harbor your funding account. So Tipalti works in the same way as your bank. We're able to hold funding accounts in different currencies per your entity. So if you'd like to hold a USD, Euro, GBP, other currencies, we can hold those currencies for you within Tipalti. And as you're paying all of these invoices, we will draw from those particular funding accounts for you. So again, you're not having to make those multiple different payment batches, as we've said. In terms of being notified when we have to upload payments or transfer payments from your bank into Tipalti, you will have full visibility over when that needs to happen. Here you have a funds required screen that gives you two, I think, really important views. One is, of course, letting you know when invoices are going to be processed within Tipalti. And the second, you'll be able to see once the actual screen loads, is exactly when cash is actually leaving Tipalti. So you can actually add that to your cash flow forecasting as well, i.e. ensuring that our cash flow forecast, there we go, our cash flow forecast is correct in terms of AP, and when money is actually leaving the actual account based on all the currency information in the currencies that we're paying out of. So here, just to highlight, today we're going to be making a payment in USD, in euros, in GBP for one of our entities. But to make that payment, we'll need you to populate the actual the funding account, 27K in USD, nothing in euros because we're fine with euro payments, and in GBP, nothing as well. So as you make those transfers, we're then able to actually create those payments to go out the system. The same with, as in different actual days. So if we had more payments, let's say the operational payments are going out at the end of the month, we'll be able to see that within this screen as well. Okay, so in terms of the AP function, that is the full end-to-end flow. And if we go back to the actual slide here, what you should have been able to see is that in terms of the actual flow, a lot of our customers, as you can see on this screen, let me just go to the right slide. Have trusted us to take away their AP burden, and found value in utilizing Tipalti as the solution to automate their entire P2P process. They saved time, invoices were processed more accurately, they had better relationships with their suppliers. In terms of AP staffing, they were able to reduce or actually keep the actual staff they have and actually upskill the actual staff that they had as well, which meant more staff retention, better satisfaction internally in terms of their job, better supplier partner experience as well because of the Supplier Hub, and then a lot of cost savings across the board because Tipalti is doing a lot of that heavy lifting for you. And then in terms of time, again, with the month-end close, this is an area where, you have the most volume in terms of manual effort. That's significantly reducing the actual manual effort assigned to the month-end close as well when it comes to AP. I did promise a quick overview of another solution that we have as well. That is the AP solution closed. What we do also provide is another way in terms of managing payments out. And this is actually partner management. So if I give you the scenario, if you have a situation like Deliveroo or Uber, where you're actually dealing with partners where you have to make mass payments to them as you interact with them, you know, they're actually assigned to your revenue. At the end of a month, at the end of a quarter, whatever it is, you have to bulk pay those partners. What we're able to do is actually do exactly, you know, have the same flow for them, onboard those partners utilizing an iframe. So this could be embedded within your website. Somebody from Deliveroo or an Uber driver can put their information in the actual payment platform. And in the same way in which you saw the AP process work, we're then able to make mass payments to all of those different partners within the platform. So this is an area where we found a lot of efficiencies created for businesses, because you're dealing with such high volume payments to multiple partners across the world in multiple different currencies, utilizing multiple different payment methods. That one area where at the end we're creating that one batch file to pay volumes of different partners, this will be highly this will create a lot of efficiencies. It just in that particular area, utilizing Tipalti, as you probably can understand now, seeing the actual solution. This has created a lot of better partner experience for anyone that has that kind of setup, better partner relationships, which is important because obviously they're driving revenue as well, more accurate payments, less time to actually prepare the actual pay runs, and also, you know, a lot of the calculations, although created outside the system, the actual preparation of those payment batches is what's taking a lot of time. And also easier to track who's been paid and when. And also those partners can see exactly that, utilizing that partner hub that we saw before. And the key thing is we have to keep our partners happy, so we've got less risk of any missed payment. So I know that was a quick whistle-stop tour of Tipalti and the different solutions that we have. What I'm going to do now is give us some time to actually maybe answer some of your questions that you might have, maybe hand back to Ryan to see if there were any questions from the actual chat.
Thanks so much, Jasmine. So thanks everyone for all your engagement on the webinar. We actually have a few questions that have all been submitted, so I'll start going through some of those now. If you have any more as we go, do feel free to keep adding them in the chat. So the first question is, can the OCR solution be sold without the whole approval process?
So if I just understand the question, I'm assuming that meant the OCR without the whole AP process, the supplying or onboarding to payment process. So actually the value of the platform is the full end-to-end. You know, if we're not extracting the actual information from the suppliers upfront, then actually, you know, the process of then the capturing the detail all the way to the OCR part or the way to the payments, we lose a lot of the value of the actual product. So it is an actual holistic solution. It's the whole P2P process, and as you've seen, there's a lot of value in actually taking on the full suite rather than trying to set it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's important to bring out there that OCR in isolation will give about 50% accuracy of the data that's on an invoice. So it's not just about 50% though. If you want to get true efficiency and true automation, you really want to use other features such as managed services, machine learning, and AI to raise that 50% up plus percent. That's where you get the real efficiency saving. That's where the AP departments will have to stop going back into each invoice and updating it with lots more work. So I think in isolation, it won't really add full value.
Thanks for the insight there. The second question is, how does the self-billing work? How does the reconciliation of monthly supplier statements work as well?
Okay, so the self-billing works by which we can upload the details in terms of, you know, who needs to be paid, what needs to be paid, and how much needs to be paid directly onto our platform, and we'll automatically create the invoices for your suppliers or partners. We see this a lot within the digital space. So again, instead of manually having to create the actual invoices for those suppliers, we're now able to automate that for you. And sorry, the second bit was the reconciliation. So of course, within NetSuite, what you'll be doing is creating a bank account. The bank account will be the Tipalti bank account. And in the same way that you would be reconciling banks within NetSuite as you are doing now, we're able to feed the information into that bank account, and you'll utilize the NetSuite standard bank reconciliation functionality to reconcile those banks as well. So because you know what's been paid, because you know the invoices that are being paid, that's quite an easy step. It's just select all and reconcile.
Perfect, thanks for that. The next question is, in your workflow, you show PO, receipt, invoice. Can this be managed in the following way? PO, invoice, item, receipt. We have to pay for goods prior to receiving the item, so your workflow wouldn't work for us.
PO, invoices, item, receipts. So really good question. It's a good question to maybe get back to. Ultimately, once invoices are paid, once invoices are approved, we can actually create the payment, but I just want to make sure that whether receipting has to be a step to then move it on to payments. So we can get back to whoever that question came from post this chat.
Of course. Yeah, if you just send me a quick email to ryan.harris@noblue.co.uk, we'll take that one offline for you.
Brilliant,
That's
thank you.
ryan.harris@noblue.co.uk. So the next question is there any validation on the payment method fields to ensure the supplier is recording the correct bank information?
Yes, so that's the 26,000 rules that we have embedded within the system. So as I don't know if I logged off at this time, but ultimately what will happen is as you're putting the information in, Tipalti will let you know, or let the actual supplier know, if the incorrect details are being captured. You can't actually go forward in terms of onboarding unless the correct information is being captured within that area of the system.
Okay, perfect, thank you. The next question is, we have a number of suppliers that we prepay and don't have a supplier invoice. How can this be managed?
Yeah, so as long as there's a PO related to those invoices that are being created within the system, we can manage prepaid invoices on the actual PO. So it'll be the payment will be allocated to the actual PO, and then actually when the invoice comes in, then we can sort out the allocation to the actual invoice later.
Okay, that's brilliant. Next question. So how long does it take on average to process one invoice through OCR self-service?
My understanding is it's pretty quick, but again, I can find out exactly exact timings, but yeah, something that we can get back to.
Of course. A couple of new questions come in. Can payees be set up and not given access to view the account?
Sorry, I missed the first bit of that.
Can payees be set up and not given access to view the account?
So I would assume that means not give access to the Supplier Hub that we've shown. Yeah, so you can actually set up suppliers yourself internally, and then yeah, they just don't use the portal, everything, but they would have to submit their invoices via email, and then the actual flow would work exactly the same as you saw.
Perfect. Anyone who has follow-up questions, do feel free to ping them in. The next question is, are purchasing budgets linked to NetSuite budgets?
Yeah, so I think we're talking about the approved solution here. So you would have to upload the actual budgets within approve, and then you can see that side-by-side matching.
Perfect, thank you. Next question is, how long is a typical implementation?
I shall hand that over to Deepak.
Thanks, Jasmine. Great questions, by the way. Thank you for all of these. An implementation typically can last, depending on the complexity, it can be done in as soon as 3 weeks, and it can take as long as 12 weeks. It does depend on complexity. Obviously, you're asking how long a piece of string is here. But we've done them as quickly as 3 weeks in the past.
That's brilliant. The next question is, I have about 200 invoices per month to process. Does this level justify using a system such as Tipalti?
Yeah, I'll take this question again. We often get asked this question. Typically, our response is if you've got more than 100 invoices, which is domestic and local invoices to process, then at that point there, you're likely to be feeling the pinch of the manual process. So, and that's where you're going to be looking to automate it and create that efficiency. So 200 invoices, yes, absolutely, you would get significant value from that. And right the way down to 100 invoices per month, that is where you should be considering a system like that and certainly evaluating it.
Right, so we have one final question left, which is the team local in the UK?
Yes, the teams are local in the UK. Jasmine and I are located in the UK, of course. The implementation team is located in the UK. There's a development team here in the UK. There's marketing and sales teams in the UK. So everybody reasonably that the customer and you guys would want to interact with are all local to the UK. Our office is in London currently.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Deepak. Thanks very much, Jasmine, for all your help today. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to view our webinar. If you'd like any further information or a personalised demonstration, please reach out to me at ryan.harris@noblue.co.uk. As mentioned earlier, this is part of a series of webinars that we should be running. So if you'd like to receive invitations to subsequent webinars in our series, please just drop me an email and I'll add you to our mailing list. So thanks very much for your time today and look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Thank you very much indeed, Ryan, and the NoBlue team, and all the guests.